What's going on, Jerome's? Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has been on the job as Vikings GM over the last 2 off seasons, and in year one, 13-4, won the division. Not bad, especially as the Vikings are engaged in a competitive rebuild. And Kwesi has made a lot of moves, moving on from the Prete, Ricky, Spielman era, and some have not been popular amongst the fans, but it sort of is what it is. And Kwesi is implementing the new analytically driven, the whole Moneyball approach to things, but there's some moves that you question. There's some trades that you question. There's some signings that you question. But overall, we got no choice. He is the man in charge. And frankly, I think that Kwesi has had himself a really good offseason. I think that he's really asserted himself into the role. And yes, as a first-time general manager, he has grown and shown into the job. And I think that he really is doing some damn good things. And notably is the TJ Hockinson extension. So the Hockenson deal, the 4 years, $66 million and change, up to $68.5, is the first long-term extension that Kwesi has done over the last 2 years. Now, Kwesi has done 1-2 year deals with various guys, either some patchwork deals like with Kirk Cousins or in free agency, but he hasn't thrown down the gauntlet and given out like the mega contracts. Now, yes, you say Josh Oliver 3-year deal, $21 million, but in terms of superstar top tier money, Hockenson is the first deal, and he came out ahead. He came out with a plum. Number one, he kept a key player during his prime years. He navigated a very choppy negotiation. You remember a couple days ago, all the reports are like, oh, things aren't going very well in the Hockenson and Vikings negotiations, all that stuff. But even though Hockenson, with incentives, will be the highest paid tight end in NFL history, as well as the highest guarantee to a tight end in NFL history, it's a pretty team-friendly deal. And we talked about the cap hits. It's lowered his cap hit this year, but as well as where all of the dead money is. I mean, it's in the first 2 years of the deal. And if you factor in his 5th-year option, this is basically a 1-year extension, and it gets very team friendly on the back end of the contract. So I think overall, it's a really good, well negotiated deal by Kwesi and Rob Brzezinski. And also, Hockenson is happy at the end of the day, and that does matter, where teams can just grind players into the ground and put their thumb down on the scale, but that's not going to build a good culture. And this sends a very good message, like, hey, Kwesi will take care of you if you perform on the field, and that's exactly what is happening. And Kwesi's had a couple of tests this offseason, and I think that he's passed all 3 so far. Number one is the Zadarius Smith shenanigans. So number one, Kwesi signs Zadarius to a very team-friendly deal, 3 years and change, where the Vikings had all the control, all the guaranteed money evaporated after year one, but Zadarius didn't want to be here, and he traded him to his old team, the Cleveland Browns. His mentor, Andrew Berry, gave him some upgrades and some draft picks, and the Vikings cleared up a lot of cap space and upgraded day 3 draft selections for a player who didn't want to be here. It's a pretty damn good result. And then you had the whole Danielle Hunter hold-in as he was looking to upgrade his contract. And they worked out a 1-year compromise where Danielle got market value $20 million plus, and the Vikings kept a premium player at a premium position firmly in his prime. That's also another win. And the Vikings, maybe they do have some reservations about Danielle, whether it's health, whether it's age, whether it's him in this scheme, but you get to see what he does this year, and still leaves the door open for a long-term extension. So I think overall Kwesi has done well this offseason, but of course GMs are always going to be judged by how they do in the draft. And the 2022 draft class, rightfully so, was much maligned. I mean, Lewis Cine broke his leg. Booth Jr. had a bunch of injuries. Ed Ingram, even though he played every single snap, was marginal. Asamoah Evans didn't really get the time of day. Chandler got hurt, and also it's whatever there. But you also factor in the class with this year with the 6 draft picks with Addison, Blackman, Carry On My Jayward Son, etc., where I understand that people want to criticize Kwesi and these 2 draft classes, but 14 of 16 of these picks will be on 53-man rosters to start week 1, which is an amazing hit rate, especially considering how many day 3 picks there are. Now, the only 2 that didn't make it are Asezi Otomowo, who is on the Jaguars practice squad right now, as well as Dwayne McBride, 7th-round pick, who is also on the Vikings practice squad. So it's not like they're missing at the top of the draft. And Kwesi could easily have thrown in the towel on some of these draft picks or try to get them through waivers onto the practice squad, but he didn't. And also, I actually do think that Lewis Cine, maybe this year, maybe next year, will make a big-time impact. Booth, if he can stay healthy, sure. Ed Ingram hopefully improves in year 2. Asamoah is going to be in the mix there at off-ball linebacker with Pace Jr., by the way, Kwesi also found. And then Ty Chandler is going to be running back 2, and Jalen Naylor is going to be in that mix. Nick Muse may be the best tight end 4 in the National Football League, and you go from there. Plus, Addison's going to be a superstar. Blackman's already starting. Jaquelin Roy got in with the ones. Jaron Hall potentially could be the QB of the future, and if you find him in the 5th round, I think that's a huge win as well. And just recapping some of Kwesi's other moves that don't involve the draft picks, so letting Anthony Barr walk, where longtime stalwart team captain, 4-time Pro Bowler, letting him walk. I mean, that's a big decision. Signed Za'Darius, traded Za'Darius, brought in some very solid veteran leadership with Phillips and Hicks and Munt. Signed Cousins to that 1-year Band-Aid deal through 2023. TBD what happens there. Draft day trades in division with the Lions and the Packers. Now, a lot of people criticize Kwesi over those trades, except with the modern trade charts. I mean, the Vikings won both of those. They found UDFA Ryan Wright, Boomer, one of the best young punters in the league, traded for Nick Mullins and Blacklock and Jalen Rager before the start of the season last year. Now, I understand. You can say, the Blacklock and the Rager trades, they didn't work out. What did it cost the Vikings? A couple of late-round picks, a couple of day 3 selections, it really does not matter. It really doesn't at the end of the day. And, hey, sometimes you gamble and lose, but you can't win the lotto unless you buy a ticket. And that's what Kwesi is doing with these extremely low-risk, moderate to high-reward spots. Just didn't work out this time. Traded for Hockenson midseason. That one worked out. Oh, yeah, no one talks about that trade working out. And then this offseason, you let go of Thielen and Kendricks and Dalvin. And, yeah, you could easily say that they probably have a couple of good years left in them, but moving on. And making those decisions are tough. You take fan favorites, stalwarts of this team, and you give them their walking papers. That shows that you are in control. You absolutely are. And, again, letting go of a player a year too early versus a year too late is extremely smart. Also, letting Diesel Dalvin walk, where we'd love to keep him, but not at $14 million. The same thing with Patrick Peterson. Then they sign Brandon Powell, formerly of the Rams. He made the roster, going to be a return specialist. Josh Oliver's the best blocking tight end in the game. Marcus Davenport, again, gambling, yes, $13 million deal, but he's got all the talent and potential in the world if he can stay healthy. Dean Lowry is solid along the defensive line. Signed Byron Murphy Jr., who's going to be great starting on the inside and outside for the Vikings. And then finding UDFAs like Pace and Carter and Najee Thompson, and also the Daniel Hunter compromise in the Hockenson extension like we talked about. Now you could say, well, this is just all the scouting department. This is all Brzezinski with the cap stuff. Then it's a no-win situation for Kwesi, because honestly, some fans, whether it's a coach, a player, or a GM, they can't do anything right, or they don't get any credit for when they do things right, and they do everything wrong. Like, everything wrong is the end of the world. And I feel like some of the fans think that way about Kwesi, but just calling a spade and just looking at the work objectively, like he's had some tough decisions, and he's come out ahead on most of them. And next up is what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins. Like, will they extend him long-term, short-term? Will he be the quarterback in 2024? We'll see. And Justin Jefferson, like, that's a major thing. I mean, actually, it's relatively easy. Just pay him whatever. He's the best wide receiver in the National Football League, potentially a generational player, and make him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, and just go from there. And then also next offseason, Christian Darrisaw is going to be eligible for an extension. Of course, left tackle, premium position, it's going to be a lot of money involved, and Darrisaw is ascending, and I think at the end of the season, he will be regarded as one of the best young left tackles in the game, and one of the best left tackles in the game writ large. So, Kwesi does have a couple of more large decisions ahead of him, but overall, I approve what he's done over these last 2 off seasons, and a lot of the decisions were tough. Letting go of veterans, taking gambles on high upside guys, making some draft picks and some draft moves that weren't going to be popular with the fans, but they're going to be building blocks of this team going forward. So we'll see what happens. Also, taking care of your superstars, especially at premium positions, it's tough. it is tough, but overall I think Kwesi is succeeding. But your thoughts are thoughts. Why the Hockenson extension was a huge win for general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value. Burp.